Listen to this, once the shift will happen. Hey guys, tonight we're going to do something a little different. We're not just going to listen. We're going to let this experience shift something deep within you. Picture yourself lying in bed. Right now, lights dimmed, the air still, the world outside slowing down. You might hear a faint hum of a fan or the echo of distant traffic, but inside you, something is stirring. A subtle awareness, a sense that this moment, this very moment, is meant to unlock a different version of you, one that has been waiting, just beneath the noise. You probably won't survive this in the same way you walked in. That old mindset? It won't last much longer, not if you're really listening. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop your location and local time in the comments. Let's see who else is out there, listening with you across the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're hearing this now because your inner world has already started to shift. There's no mistake in timing. You might not be able to name it yet, but something inside you has been whispering louder. An urge to break free from everything that feels ordinary and unaligned. Maybe it's the fatigue of living the same loop. Maybe it's the frustration of chasing peace but always catching anxiety instead. Or maybe you're just done pretending everything's fine when your spirit knows it isn't. And here's where it begins. Not with an explosion of effort, not with a grand gesture, but with a single act, listening with intention. Because sometimes when you really listen, you don't need to hear something twice. Once is enough, if your soul is ready. It's not the words that carry the power. It's your willingness to receive them, to let them echo through you, to challenge the wiring that's been holding you back. You've been operating on programs written years ago, by fear, by doubt, by others' expectations. Tonight we rewrite them. There's a secret to real change that the Stoics knew long before modern psychology caught up. It doesn't start in massive shifts. It starts in the smallest things done deliberately, again and again. Epictetus said it clearly, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid with regard to external things. Why? Because the real transformation isn't visible to others at first. It's internal, it's subtle, but it's everything. You don't need the world to see your change before you feel it. You just need to plant a seed. Tonight you're planting one. Modern neuroscience agrees with what the Stoics practiced thousands of years ago. Repeated, intentional behavior rewires your brain. Not just motivational theory, hard science. Every time you think a new empowering thought, every time you resist a destructive impulse, every time you whisper, "I am ready," your neural pathways start to realign. You might not notice it the first time, or the fifth, but by the 30th, it's not just a practice, it's who you've become. The Stoics didn't use the term affirmation, but they lived the principle daily. They woke with questions, not declarations. Epictetus taught his students to begin their mornings by asking, "What is up to me today and what is not?" That one question, repeated long enough, taught mastery of thought, clarity of focus, and emotional sovereignty. You can do the same. Maybe your version is, "What does my soul need today?" Or, "How can I show up with peace?" Whatever it is, pick a question. Let it guide your day, every day, until your mind starts to answer it even before you ask. You know what a marathon runner says to themselves on mile 21? Not, "I hope I finish." They say, "Keep going. I've trained for this." They don't rely on motivation. They rely on the discipline they've rehearsed. And so can you. Even something as simple as listening to this every morning becomes a sacred ritual. Not because the sound itself has magical power, but because you believe it does. You bring the meaning. You bring the fire. Each time you play this, you're reinforcing that belief. And belief? That's the foundation of behavior. Your actions follow what you deeply, subconsciously accept as true. So make sure your truths are chosen, not inherited. And here's what's true now. You're not starting from scratch. You're not broken. You're not behind. You're already shifting. Right now. With every breath you take while staying present, you're proving that you're ready to grow. A seed doesn't explode into bloom overnight. It starts underground, in silence, in darkness, in stillness, just like you are right now. But roots are forming. The soil is warming. The shift is happening, not in loud claps, but in steady, quiet resolve. Historians and Stoic intellectuals still argue whether Epictetus's teachings were meant solely for hardship or for full human flourishing. But either way, one thing is certain. He believed that we are free the moment we realize we can control our response to anything. Tonight, your first act of power is listening, really listening, letting every word wrap around your thoughts like a blanket of intention. And in the morning, if you feel a little more still, a little more anchored, a little more certain, it won't be a coincidence. It'll be the shift, already in motion. You're not here by accident. And now that you've made it through the first threshold, it's time to clear what stands in the way of your transformation. Negativity. Not just the loud, obvious kind, but the subtle forms too. The background noise of self-doubt. The whispered opinions of others. The ambient anxiety that hums beneath the surface of your thoughts like static. In a world built to capture your attention with chaos, your greatest power is not just choosing what to focus on, but what to exclude. That's the essence of mental freedom. And the Stoics knew it long before social media algorithms existed. Marcus Aurelius, writing in the dim light of war tents and royal halls, captured this timeless truth. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Pause and breathe. Because those aren't just words, they're a framework for liberation. You don't have to control what happens outside. You don't have to change the storm. You only need to calm the room you're in, the space between your ears. Because when that room is quiet, your true voice becomes audible again. Negativity is sticky. It clings to the walls of your thoughts, often unnoticed, shaping the way you see yourself in the world. One sarcastic comment, one criticism left unresolved, one memory of failure left unchecked. It builds. And if you're not careful, it becomes your atmosphere, your baseline. You start filtering everything through a lens of caution, cynicism, or quiet despair. But here's what the Stoics taught, and what modern psychology echoes. You can choose what impressions you accept. The ancient philosophers called this the gate of impressions. Every thought, emotion, or reaction knocking on your mental door must first pass inspection. And if it doesn't serve your clarity or strength, don't let it in. Right now, take inventory. What's been looping in your mind lately? Whose voice is louder than your own? What fears are pretending to be truth? Bring them forward, one by one. Hold them to the light, and ask, is this mine? Is this helpful? Is this within my control? If not, let it go. That's not denial. That's discernment. The modern world rewards drama. Algorithms feed conflict. News thrives on outrage. But you're no longer in the business of being constantly reactive. You're training yourself, deliberately, to become centered. And when you are centered, you can respond instead of react. You can choose clarity over chaos. Keanu Reeves once said, "Grief changes shape, but it never ends." His life, marked by tragedy after tragedy, didn't spiral into bitterness. It deepened into quiet strength. When he lost his partner, his child, his closest friend, the world expected collapse. But Keanu responded with grace. He lived simply, gave generously, and let his work be his offering, not his escape. That's Stoicism embodied. When the world shakes, you don't have to shatter. You can remain whole. Not because the pain disappears, but because your center is no longer negotiable. And from that center, a shift begins. A true transformation, the kind that doesn't announce itself with noise but with stillness. Think about your inner world like a garden. If negativity is the weed, then awareness is the gardener's hand. Each time you pluck a thought that says, "I'm not enough," you make space for one that says, "I am becoming." Each time you discard the memory that only brings guilt, you open room for a vision that invites growth. And when your mind is no longer crowded with what you can't control, creativity returns. Energy flows back. You'll feel lighter, not in a floaty, mystical way, but in a clear, grounded, deeply embodied way. Historians still debate whether Marcus Aurelius wrote Meditations for the world or only as a private diary. But one thing they agree on is this: his reflections on guarding the mind were not poetic musings. They were survival tools. Mental armor forged in the fire of responsibility, leadership, and war. And you're no different. Your mind is your command center. What you allow inside will determine how you respond to challenge, to beauty, to love, to life itself. So let this next practice become part of your day. When a negative thought enters, pause. Don't fight it. Don't suppress it. Just hold it and ask, "Is this mine to carry?" If the answer is no, gently set it down. Then ask, "What is mine?" You'll find that your power lies in your ability to respond with clarity. That clarity is your light. You're not rejecting the world. You're refining your relationship with it. And here's a paradox the Stoics understood well. The more you detach from the need to control everything, the more control you gain over what truly matters, yourself. You become the kind of person who, in the middle of gossip, chooses silence. In the middle of pressure, chooses breath. In the middle of noise, chooses peace. That's transformation. Not the kind that shows up in selfies or grand announcements, but the kind that quietly rewrites who you are. A soft smile where before there was tension. A thoughtful pause where before there was a snap. An unshakable belief in your worth even when the world offers no applause. If you've been feeling drained lately, it's not because you're broken. It's because your mind has been carrying things it didn't need to. Let them go. Unclench your jaw. Soften your brow. Relax your hands. You are allowed to be at peace. The shift? It's not in becoming more. It's in releasing what isn't truly you. This morning you woke up. Maybe you didn't bounce out of bed. Maybe you hit snooze. Maybe the first thing that hit you wasn't excitement, but pressure. But still, you woke up. You took a breath. Your heart kept beating. Your eyes opened to another sunrise, another stretch of hours that not everyone got to see. And that, whether it felt like it or not, was a miracle. Gratitude. That's where we're going next. It's not a fluffy concept or an emotional high. It's not something you practice only when life feels easy or obvious. No, real gratitude, the kind that rewires your brain and rebuilds your soul, is a discipline. And like all disciplines, it starts as a whisper, then grows into a powerful force if you nurture it. Every morning, before you check your phone, before you remember your worries, before the world rushes in with noise, pause, touch your chest, feel your breath, and say, "Thank you." You don't need to know what you're thanking. God, the universe, life itself. Just give thanks. Because gratitude opens a door that negativity keeps closed. It shifts your focus from what's missing to what's already here. The Stoics were fierce in their approach to gratitude. Seneca once said, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality." But it was his less quoted insight that cuts deeper. He is most powerful who is most often grateful. Imagine that. Power, not from control or dominance, but from the ability to see beauty in what already exists. That's the shift. And it happens today, not when everything is perfect, but when you choose to see differently. Think of gratitude as a muscle. At first it might feel weak, underused, unsure, but each time you choose it, especially in moments that don't deserve it, you build it. When someone cuts you off in traffic and you say, "Thank you for reminding me to slow down." When your plans fall apart and you say, "Thank you for the space I didn't know I needed." When you're overlooked and still whisper, "Thank you for helping me see my worth is not determined by others." Gratitude is not blind optimism, it's clear-eyed courage. It's the decision to remain aware of your blessings even while navigating your burdens. Historians still argue whether Stoic gratitude was meant to be emotional or strictly rational. But does it matter? The effect is the same. It changes the lens through which you see everything. Let me ask you, when was the last time you were grateful for your breath? Not just aware of it, but grateful. When was the last time you felt your pulse and thought, "I am alive"? That is enough for now. That awareness alone can anchor your entire day. There's a story of a woman named Amina, a school teacher from a remote village. She taught with broken chalk on cracked boards, her classroom missing half a roof. Yet her students adored her. They sang in class, laughed often, and achieved scores higher than most private schools in the capital. When a visiting journalist asked her how she managed this, she replied, "Because I start every day by saying thank you for the children who show up, the air we breathe, and the chance to teach anything at all." That's not poverty. That's abundance. When you cultivate gratitude, you stop chasing experiences to feel fulfilled. You bring fulfillment to the experiences. You don't need exotic vacations, perfect relationships, or viral success. You begin to see miracles in moments, in routines, in now. When you combine gratitude with belief, true grounded belief in the possibility of a beautiful day, you activate a kind of internal frequency that radiates outward. Others can feel it. You can feel it. You walk differently, speak differently. Not because your life suddenly became perfect, but because you began to perceive it as a gift, not a punishment. Start your day with this simple thought. Today is sacred because it's unpromised. That thought alone changes everything. It shifts your tone in conversation. It slows your reaction to anger. It opens your eyes to details you've ignored. The sun warming your hands, the soft rhythm of someone else's breathing, the way tea curls in a mug. This is what it means to live richly. Epictetus reminded his students that they didn't control events, only responses. Gratitude is one of the most powerful responses you can offer, especially to a day that's gone wrong. Not because you enjoy pain, but because you understand that even pain, when viewed through the right lens, contains seeds of learning, humility, and renewal. You don't need to understand the whole plan. You just need to trust that your participation matters. Your awareness shapes reality. Your inner state shapes outer experience. Faith helps here too. If you believe in God, then gratitude becomes worship. Each breath becomes a form of prayer. Each simple act, waking, walking, working, becomes a chance to say, "I see you, God, I thank you." That's not religious ritual. That's spiritual attention. And if you don't identify with religion, No problem. Gratitude still works. The Stoics weren't preaching. They were practicing. A philosophy of seeing the world rightly, clearly, and with grace. So tonight or tomorrow morning when you rise, don't just rise with your legs. Rise with your heart, with your attention, with your sacred thank you. You don't have to chant it out loud, you just have to mean it. And when you do, something in you unlocks. The day opens differently. The world feels less like a test and more like a partnership. You've been gifted this moment. Not everyone got it. That alone makes it worth living with full presence. And if you ever feel overwhelmed again, and you will, come back to this one truth. Gratitude is always available. No matter what's happening. No matter how far you've strayed. It's your doorway back to meaning, back to power, back to yourself. You felt it before. That pressure to race ahead, to plan 10 steps forward. To think of what's next while barely living in what's now. You're not alone. Most people move through their lives like passengers on a fast-moving train, staring out the window at blurred scenery, missing the details of the journey entirely. But here's the truth the Stoics knew, and you need to remember right now. The only moment you will ever truly possess is this one. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Not when you get the job. Find the love. Fix the problem. Right now. John, a freelance photographer constantly chasing beauty between cities, once stood in Kyoto as morning spilled gold across the rooftops. He had his camera ready. He was in the perfect place. But just then, his phone buzzed. Another urgent email, another task screaming for attention. And for a moment, he almost broke the spell. Almost traded real life for digital distraction. But something made him stop. He looked up, refocused, and right then an old woman pedaled past with a cart of fresh flowers, sunlight dripping from every petal. He clicked. That image ended up on the cover of a major magazine. That's what being present can do. It can take an ordinary second and transform it into your most meaningful one. And no, not every moment will be so cinematic. But every moment does hold possibility. And you miss 100% of them if you're not here. The Stoics didn't just value the present. They worshipped it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do every act of your life as though it were the very last act of your life." That's not a threat. It's a reminder of sacred urgency. Not panic. Presence. Historians still debate whether Marcus wrote those words during peace or during war, but their weight remains unchanged. Because the principle doesn't depend on circumstance. It depends on choice. Your choice. When you live present, you become sensitive to subtleties. You notice the shift in someone's tone, the ache in your own shoulders, the light on the floor, the idea that arrives when you wash the dishes, the opportunity tucked inside a normal conversation. You stop waiting for someday because you realize someday is an illusion. Life isn't happening out there. It's not waiting in the future. It's unfolding here, right now, in your breath, your body, your awareness. And this is where your power lives. Being present doesn't mean being passive, it means being precise. You act not out of stress but alignment, not out of habit but choice. And that's where life opens up. Not wider, but deeper. Let's be honest. The biggest reason most people don't change isn't lack of information. It's distraction. They're too busy reacting to notifications, schedules, and other people's expectations to notice their own life slipping past. Don't let that be you. You don't need to go on a retreat to reclaim your attention. You just need to slow down and breathe right here, right now. Inhale. Feel that? That's your anchor. Exhale. That's your return. Every breath is a chance to come back to yourself. You don't need ideal conditions. You just need full presence. One phone call made without rushing. One conversation had without multitasking. One walk taken without headphones. These aren't just habits, they're reclamations. When you start living in the present, you'll see how much richness you've been stepping over, how many conversations you've half heard, how many chances for love or laughter or breakthrough you missed, not because they weren't there, but because you weren't. Even in failure, presence helps. You can't undo the past, but you can fully feel it, learn from it, and meet what's next with sharpened clarity. The Stoics didn't waste time regretting. They believed in reflecting, learning, then stepping forward with intention. You might think being present is a luxury, something you'll do once life settles. But no, presence is the tool that makes life feel settled. It's not the reward. It's the path. One of the best-kept secrets of high performers, deep thinkers, and resilient souls, they know how to lock into the moment. They know how to shut out the noise, quiet their mind, and say, "This, right here, this is what matters." And when you do that, even mundane moments become holy. Making breakfast, hugging someone goodbye, reading a sentence that suddenly hits different, laughing at something small, those aren't fillers, they're life. You might not get a warning before something precious ends. That's not morbid. It's motivating. Because knowing that things are temporary makes them more beautiful, not less. That's the Stoic paradox. Awareness of death deepens our love for life. So next time you catch yourself drifting, thinking about what's next, what's wrong, what's missing, pull yourself back. Not with guilt, but with kindness. Say, "I'm here," and mean it. You're not just passing time. You're shaping it. You're not just waiting for the future. You're building it breath by breath, action by action, choice by choice. And when someone asks one day how you made the shift, how you finally changed your life, you'll know. It began when you stopped skipping the moment and started living. Your mind is the command center of your life. Your body is the vessel that carries that command. And if either is neglected, the message gets lost. You already know this. You've felt it. Days when your body aches from lack of movement, when your mind spirals from lack of rest, when your soul is muffled by the noise of everything except what truly matters. That's why this section matters. Because no shift can sustain itself if the foundation is cracked. No transformation will hold if your core isn't aligned. You can't think clearly in a fog. You can't rise when your habits are pulling you back down. Taking care of your mind and body isn't a luxury, it's your first duty to yourself. It's the silent commitment that whispers, "I am preparing myself for the life I say I want." The Stoics didn't glamorize strength. They trained for it. They fasted, not to shrink their bodies, but to stretch their self-control. They walked, meditated, and wrote, not for praise, but for internal alignment. Their discipline was a philosophy in motion, and it still is. Think of it like this. You're a frequency. Every thought, every meal, every movement either sharpens your signal or scrambles it. And when your signal is clear, you don't have to shout. You don't have to beg for peace. It radiates from you. There's a story I carry close. A friend of mine, years ago, hit rock bottom after a failed startup. He lost his confidence, his drive, even his appetite for life. One morning, instead of scrolling his phone, he stepped outside and started jogging. He didn't go far, just once around the block. Then he sat down and wrote 3 things he was grateful for. Then he breathed for 10 minutes. That was it. No breakthrough, no epiphany, just repetition. Day after day. 3 months later, he looked in the mirror and saw someone new, not just physically, mentally, spiritually. He said, "I'm not stronger because the world changed. I'm stronger because I did." And that's exactly what you're doing now. You're stepping into the reality that your energy is your responsibility, and your habits are the architects of that energy. So let's break it down. What are you putting into your body? What thoughts are you entertaining? Are you giving your mind silence? Are you giving your lungs oxygen? Are you giving your body movement? This isn't about becoming perfect. This is about tuning your instrument so it plays the right song. Historians still argue whether Stoic training was physical preparation for hardship or a metaphor for spiritual development. Maybe it's both. Either way, the message is clear. To live wisely, you must live intentionally, starting with your vessel. Sleep is sacred. Water is medicine. Stillness is strength. Movement is therapy. You don't have to overhaul everything at once. Just one choice, one conscious inhale, one glass of water, one moment of stretching, one walk without headphones, letting your thoughts breathe. Your brain, like your body, responds to rhythm. And once you build a rhythm that reflects health, clarity, and peace, your entire life will start to dance to that beat. You'll find yourself speaking slower, smiling more, resisting things that used to control you. You'll see chaos but not become it. You'll experience stress but respond to it with grounded power. You'll begin to understand what the Stoics meant when they spoke of eupathei, the cultivated, healthy emotions. Not wild impulses, but refined responses. Joy that's earned. Tranquility that's practiced. And here's what most people never realize. When you take care of your mind and body, you start vibrating at a higher level. That's not just a metaphor. People feel it. You become someone others want to follow, trust, and lean on. Not because you're loud, but because you're aligned. Even your challenges feel different. You don't collapse at the first sign of failure. You adjust. You move forward. Look, taking care of yourself doesn't mean bubble baths and smoothies. It means boundaries. It means getting honest about the habits keeping you small. It means choosing discomfort now for freedom later. It means saying, I deserve to feel good. Not just sometimes, but every day. Not because life is perfect, but because you're treating yourself like someone worthy of strength, clarity, and joy. Let me ask you something. If you truly believed your mind was sacred, would you still scroll through garbage content for hours? If you believed your body was a temple, would you still fill it with things that drain instead of nourish? If you believed your energy was a message to the universe, what message are you sending right now? Your transformation doesn't depend on a 12-week plan. It begins the moment you honor yourself with one clear action. That smoothie, that breath, that refusal to doom scroll, that one choice tells your brain, we're heading somewhere better now. And here's where I want to pause, not to wrap up, but to thank you, because we're halfway through. And if you've stayed this far, that means you're not playing anymore. You're not casually listening. You're committed. You're planting the seeds of change in real time. This is the moment where most people check out. But you haven't. You're still here. Breathing. Absorbing. Becoming. And I see you. I honor that. If this journey has stirred something in you, comment below. I am becoming the strongest version of myself. Because just naming that truth gives it roots. Let's keep going. It only gets deeper from here. Today is not just another sunrise, not just another checkbox on a calendar. Today is a canvas waiting for you to pick up the brush. Because today holds something rare, the opportunity to rise, not as a slightly improved version of who you were yesterday, but as the truest, most aligned, most powerful version of yourself. You don't stumble into that version. You choose it. Intentionally. Repeatedly. Especially when it's hard. Right now, even as you listen, your mind might be whispering doubt. Can I really change? Am I just pretending? What if I fall back? And here's the truth. You will falter. You'll forget. You'll slip into old patterns. That's not failure, that's the process. But what matters more than the slip is the decision to return, again and again, to who you're meant to be. The Stoics called it training the soul, and it wasn't romantic. It was rigorous. Like forging steel, they said. Epictetus didn't teach his students to chase perfection. He taught them to pursue virtue, character, inner alignment. Because the person who lives by their values, even when no one is watching, is already free. Ask yourself tonight, what does my best version act like, speak like, think like? It might not be fully clear yet, but parts of it already exist. You've felt glimpses when you chose patience instead of frustration, when you pushed through instead of giving up, when you extended kindness when it wasn't returned. Those weren't anomalies. That was you, emerging. The world may never validate it, but you will feel it. That deep sense of integrity, that unshakable knowing that you are aligned with something higher, that you are no longer just reacting to life, but responding with purpose. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, but he still began each day by reminding himself of the kind of man he wanted to be. Just, patient, disciplined. Not because he had to, but because he chose to. That's why we remember him not just as a leader, but as a philosopher king. Historians still argue whether his meditations were personal therapy or moral instruction, but perhaps they were both. And perhaps that's the point. Becoming your best self isn't about arriving. It's about returning each day to the version of you that holds the most truth. You don't need a perfect morning routine to start. You don't need to wait until you've got it all figured out. You just need honesty. Ask yourself each night, did I live according to my values today? Not, was I productive? Not, did I impress anyone? But, was I true to myself? And if the answer is no, you don't punish yourself. You adjust, you forgive, you realign. Because the best version of you isn't measured by perfection, it's measured by direction. Are you moving toward or away from the person you're meant to be? Let me remind you of something simple but powerful. No one becomes better just because they want to. People become better because they act in alignment with what they say they believe. That's it. Belief followed by action. Not once, but every day. And that action doesn't need to be grand. It can be quiet, invisible even. Waking up early to stretch, apologizing when it's hard, choosing to keep going even when no one's cheering. These aren't minor gestures, they're the building blocks of transformation. Think of yourself like a sculpture. Each day you're chiseling, sometimes removing flaws, sometimes refining edges, sometimes just dusting off what already exists beneath the stone. But make no mistake, you are creating. And the masterpiece is you. A mother raising her kids with love and patience is living her best self. A student studying late, not for grades but for growth, is stepping into their power. A quiet person learning to speak up. A loud one learning to listen. These small moments are where the best version is born. So if you're sitting there thinking, I don't even know who that version is yet, good. That means you're curious. That means the journey has started. Every morning, whisper it to yourself. Today, I rise as the best version of me. Not the final version, but the best available today, and that's enough. That's powerful. And when you fail, and you will, you don't fall apart. You fall forward. You recommit. That's what Marcus did. That's what every wise person does. Not because they're flawless, but because they refuse to let imperfection become paralysis. And this is what separates people who change from those who merely wish. The changers know, once is not enough. They return again and again to the work of becoming. You're doing that now. Right here, listening, reflecting, showing up for your own mind, your own values. You're not waiting for someone to hand you a new life. You're building one. From this moment forward, everything becomes practice. Every challenge becomes a test of integrity. Every success becomes a reminder to stay humble. Every decision becomes a chance to reinforce your identity. And here's the final gift. The more you live as your best self, the more your environment changes. You'll attract better energy. You'll repel what no longer fits. And slowly, the world will adjust to the person you've become, not because you demanded it, but because you embodied it. Right now, your shift is real. You don't need to feel dramatic sparks to know that something inside you is locking into place. And tomorrow, you'll wake up different. Not transformed, but transforming kindness. It sounds so soft, doesn't it? So gentle, so simple. But in a world like ours, fueled by cynicism, judgment, comparison, and quick tempers, kindness isn't weak. It's radical. It's courageous. It's a form of quiet rebellion. And it's one of the most powerful tools you will ever hold. You've tried reacting before. You've raised your voice, you've snapped back, you've closed yourself off in defense, and maybe it felt good for a second. But afterward, there's always a wait. That feeling like you betrayed yourself just to win a moment. The Stoics knew this. Epictetus once said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." In other words, no one can pull you out of peace unless you allow it. And that's the invitation tonight, to reclaim your peace, not through withdrawal, but through deliberate kindness. Now let me be clear, this isn't about being passive. It's not about becoming a doormat or tolerating disrespect. It's about choosing a higher frequency even when someone else is stuck in a lower one. It's about staying true to your values when the world pressures you to break them. Imagine this. You walk into a room where someone glares, judges, mocks. You feel that initial heat rising, but instead of matching it, you lower your shoulders. You soften your face. You respond calmly, maybe even with a smile. That moment, that's power, not because you won, but because you stayed aligned. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "Whenever you are about to find fault with someone, ask yourself, what fault of mine most nearly resembles the one I'm about to criticize?" That kind of self-inquiry takes bravery. It requires humility. But it's how we grow, not just in wisdom, but in grace. Historians and philosophers still debate whether Stoicism was too emotionally detached, but if you read closely, you'll find a current of deep compassion running through the teachings. Forgiveness, patience, love not as sentiment, but as disciplined choice. And nothing embodies that better than Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, who spent decades using his platform not to entertain, but to heal. When critics attacked him, when people mocked his gentleness, he didn't lash out. He just kept showing up with sincerity day after day, because he believed every person had inherent worth, even those who had forgotten their own. That's Stoicism in action. Unwavering values, lived out with dignity. Kindness is not weakness. It is mastery. When you meet cruelty with calm, you don't lose, you lead. And in that space, something magical happens. You start to attract the kind of peace you've been trying to demand. Have you noticed? The more reactive we become, the more disconnected we feel. But when you shift toward kindness, not performative, not forced but real, you realign, and others feel it too. When someone holds the door and you say, "Thank you," with sincerity. When a child makes a mess and you respond with a lesson, not a shout. When someone disappoints you and you set a boundary firmly, but with respect. These micro moments reshape your soul and theirs. Kindness also clears your energy. It removes the residue of bitterness, it lifts the fog of judgment, and it puts you in tune with something deeper, something sacred. You stop fighting for your place in the world because you become the kind of person who belongs everywhere. Think of it this way: anger is loud, but kindness echoes. It's the look someone remembers years later, the note you wrote that saved a friend from falling, the moment you said, "I see you and you matter," when they felt invisible. You don't always see the ripple immediately, but it spreads, and often it circles back when you least expect it. That's how the universe, or as the Stoics called it, logos, operates. With symmetry, with balance. When you put good out, it finds a way home. Not always through the same door, but always in the right time. So tonight, ask yourself, how have I been showing up? Not just with strangers, but with loved ones. Have I been generous with my words? Have I been patient with mistakes? Have I been listening more than speaking? And if not, that's okay. You can start now. You can shift. The next time someone rolls their eyes or interrupts you or throws shade, try responding with warmth, not because they deserve it, but because you do. You deserve the peace that comes from knowing you didn't let them take you off your path. That's the mark of someone who's truly evolving. They don't trade their calm for anyone's chaos. If that resonates with you, if you've ever chosen kindness over reaction, tell your story in the comments. You never know who needs to hear it. You never know whose shift it might trigger. And one last thought. Don't forget to extend that kindness inward too. Forgive yourself when you fall short. Speak to yourself gently when you mess up. Cheer for your small wins. The way you treat yourself sets the standard for every other relationship in your life. Let kindness become your resting state, not your exception, your default. Because when you live with kindness, you're not just changing how others experience you, you're transforming how you experience yourself. And that, my friend, is one of the most powerful shifts of all. There's a quiet kind of power in someone who says thank you, even when life stings. A deeper kind of wisdom in someone who sits with failure, not to wallow, but to learn. And a rare form of grace in someone who still grows after everything fell apart. You've heard it before. Be grateful. It can feel like a cliche, especially when things aren't going well. But tonight, I want you to consider a different kind of gratitude. One that isn't based on what's good, but on what's real. One that says, I didn't like that, but I learned something. One that whispers, I didn't expect that, but maybe I needed it. That's transformational gratitude. That's where growth lives. Imagine this. A young person pours everything into a dream: money, time, belief, a startup, a project, a vision, and it fails. Not gently, completely. The humiliation, the confusion, the heartbreak, it all hits at once. They feel like they've lost themselves. But after the tears, after the questions, they sit down, open up every document, every email, every moment of that dream, and begin to study. Not to justify, not to self-punish, to learn. They write down what went wrong, what worked, what they missed. Months later, they rise again, not with vengeance, but with clarity. And years after that, they succeed beyond what they could have imagined. When asked about the turning point, they don't mention a mentor or a lucky break. They say, I'm grateful I failed. It taught me how to build properly. That's the Stoic way. Seneca once wrote, a gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. Growth to the Stoic wasn't about avoiding hardship. It was about extracting from it, learning from it, becoming through it. Historians still argue whether the Stoics believed in fate or in radical free will. But what's clear is this: they believed everything could be useful if viewed rightly. That even suffering properly examined contains treasure. And you? You've had moments like that too, haven't you? Think back to the job you didn't get, the person who walked away, the mistake you thought you'd never recover from. It hurt. It might still hurt. But hasn't some piece of you grown because of it? Stronger, wiser, softer? That's the beauty of this journey. It's not linear. It bends, breaks, and rebuilds. But if you walk it with open eyes, every chapter teaches you something the easy days never could. Gratitude isn't just for blessings. It's for the broken pieces that led you to who you are now. Let that sink in. Because when you become someone who says thank you in the middle of the mess, you access a level of strength few people ever reach. You stop needing life to be perfect in order to feel peace. You create peace through perspective. And here's the key. You practice this. You don't wait for it to happen. You build it like a skill. Each time you journal about what went wrong, not to complain but to understand, you grow. Each time you pause in pain and ask, "What is this teaching me?" you transform. Each time you whisper, "Thank you," through tears you reclaim your power. That doesn't mean you enjoy suffering, it means you refuse to let it be wasted. The Stoics didn't sugarcoat life. They stared it down, named it, respected its weight, but they never gave it the power to define them. They walked through storms with their heads high, not because they were untouched, but because they were unbreakable in spirit. And that's what you're becoming. Even now, as you reflect, you might feel a lump in your throat. That's your soul, recognizing the truth. That everything you've gone through, everything you're still carrying, has meaning. If you're willing to see it, call it God, call it the universe, call it logos, the rational force the Stoics believed in. Whatever name you choose, the message is the same. Your life is not random. Your lessons are not accidents. They're pieces of a sacred blueprint meant to awaken the deepest parts of you. So if you're in a hard season right now, hear this. It's not punishment. It's preparation. It's not the end. It's a redirection. You're not being buried. You're being planted. Gratitude, learning, growth. These are the ingredients of every transformation. Not motivation, not hype, but the quiet, patient work of perspective. And once you embrace that, even on your hardest days, you become dangerous in the best way, because nothing can take your peace. Not failure, not loss, not rejection. You've turned every enemy into a teacher, and every wound into wisdom. So tonight or tomorrow morning or sometime this week, try this. Sit down, take out a blank page, and write down 3 things you thought were setbacks, but that you now see were setups. Write down what they gave you, how they shaped you, what they forced you to learn. And if it still hurts, that's okay. Learning doesn't erase pain, but it redeems it. This is your story, not the glossy highlight reel, but the real, raw, resilient journey. And the more you own it, the more powerful your next chapters become. You're not stuck, you're awakening. And if you're grateful even now, you've already won. There's something you've been carrying for far too long. Not in your hands, maybe not even on your shoulders, but deep in your nervous system. In the way your breath tightens, in the way your jaw clenches, in the way your thoughts race at night when you're supposed to be resting. Stress. It's become so familiar, so constant, that you barely notice it anymore. You've adapted to the weight, convincing yourself it's normal. But let me remind you of something tender and powerful. Peace is your birthright. You were not meant to live in a state of chronic tension. You were not designed to constantly anticipate disaster. And no matter what the world tries to tell you, calm is not laziness, it's strength. Deep, practiced, revolutionary strength. The Stoics knew this long before modern therapy validated it. They called it ataraxia, the steady, unshaken state of inner peace. Not a fragile peace that breaks at the first sign of trouble, but a peace rooted so deep that chaos becomes background noise. But you have to choose it. You see, the modern world wants you wired. Advertisers thrive on your panic. Social media profits from your outrage. Everything is engineered to pull you away from your center. But you're not just a consumer. You're a creator of your mood, your focus, your nervous system state. That's why tonight you're going to release what you can't carry anymore. Not through force, but through awareness. Take a breath right now. Deep in through your nose, count and let it go slowly. Feel that? That's presence, that's control. Not of the world, but of your reaction to it. Marcus Aurelius, even in the thick of war and empire, would pause during the day to ask, what exactly is stressing me out? And is it within my control? Just that question alone, simple as it is, was his gateway back to clarity. You can do the same. Stress will always exist, but your relationship to it is optional. You can learn to let go without collapsing, you can surrender without giving up, and you can act decisively, without urgency. Take the story of Nanina, a young medical resident in the height of the pandemic. She worked impossible shifts, watched patients slip away, felt the crushing expectations of a system stretched thin. And she was burning out. Fast. Until one morning outside the room of her most critical patient, she wrote one line in her journal. What is within my control today? That one question changed everything. She stopped obsessing over outcomes, stopped trying to carry responsibility for what wasn't hers. And something beautiful happened. Her care deepened. Her steadiness returned. Her team noticed. The patients felt it. Her peace, quiet and grounded, became a lighthouse in a storm. That's what's possible for you too. Historians still debate whether Stoic detachment was emotional avoidance or emotional mastery. But when you look closer, you see, the Stoics weren't running from emotion. They were running toward clarity, toward a life where external chaos never dictated internal state. You have that power. The next time your mind starts to spiral, pause, place your hand on your heart, ask, what's real right now? Not what might happen, not what could fall apart, just what's true in this moment. Then ask, is this within my control? If the answer is no, release it, gently, with love. Not rejection, but detachment. And if the answer is yes, act. Not with panic, but with purpose. Peace isn't the absence of noise. It's the presence of stillness within noise. You've lived long enough in fight or flight. You've proven you can survive in stress. But now it's time to prove something harder and more important, that you can thrive in peace. You might wonder, but what if I let go and nothing comes to replace it? What if all I'm left with is emptiness? Let me tell you about Alex. Alex was a creative, talented, passionate, endlessly frustrated. He pitched his vision again and again, rejected, ignored, dismissed. But instead of quitting, he kept refining, quietly, with grace. And one day, without warning, he got the email. A major investor had been watching him, silently, waiting for the right moment. They saw not just his talent, but his tenacity. Here's the point. Life isn't always loud when it says yes. Sometimes it's silent, and your job is to keep preparing anyway. Because when you live in alignment, when you act with intention, clarity, and peace, you send out a frequency. And that frequency doesn't go unnoticed. You don't need to control the universe, you need to be ready for it. So let go. Let go of needing to prove yourself to people who don't see you. Let go of trying to force outcomes before their time. Let go of the myth that stress means you're doing something right. It doesn't. Peace is not an accident, it's a skill. And you're learning it now. Tonight, unclench your fists. Unfurrow your brow. Unburden your mind. The shift you're searching for won't come through more doing. It will come the moment you finally allow yourself to just be. Let me ask you something. Do you believe the universe is working against you or with you? It's a simple question, but your answer shapes everything. Your confidence, your decisions, your inner peace. Because here's the truth most people miss. You don't need to control every detail of your life to trust that it's unfolding, as it should. The Stoics had a word for this sacred order: logos. The rational structure behind all things, the quiet intelligence within chaos. And they believed if you lived in alignment with it, you didn't need to fear the unknown. You could flow with it. The modern world is obsessed with control. Schedules, systems, goals, everything has to be mapped. But life rarely follows our plans. Doors close, people leave, expectations shatter. And if you're clinging too tightly, that loss feels like destruction. But when you trust the order behind the disorder, when you live with faith instead of fear, you don't collapse, you adjust. That's not magical thinking, that's deep wisdom, and it's something you can practice. Howard Schultz, the founder of Starbucks, grew up in the kind of poverty that breaks most people. His father, injured, on the job, had no insurance, no options. It lit a fire in young Howard, not just to succeed, but to build differently. When he finally had the chance to expand Starbucks, he didn't just serve coffee, he served people. He insisted on health care for all employees, even part-time ones. Everyone told him he was crazy. Investors doubted him. But he trusted something bigger than quarterly profits. He trusted principle, and it worked. Starbucks exploded. Not because of a secret marketing trick, but because Schultz built it on human values. And people felt it. That's the shift. When you stop chasing outcomes and start living your mission. When you stop asking, what can I get? And start asking, what am I here to give? The Stoics didn't believe life was random. They saw every challenge as a classroom, every setback as a step. They believed the universe, if met with courage and reason, would respond in kind, not always instantly, not always clearly, but faithfully. Historians still explore whether Stoicism was compatible with religious belief. Some say it was secular, others see it as spiritual. But one thing is clear: it held deep reverence for life's order, its symmetry, its quiet intelligence, and you're part of that order. That's why your intentions matter, why your values matter. When you move with integrity, when you act rightly, even when no one's watching, you align with something ancient, something eternal, and you start to notice things shift. That opportunity that shows up out of nowhere, that person who enters your life exactly when you needed them, that message you hear at just the right moment. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe you were ready. Maybe your alignment signaled the universe, and the universe answered. Living this way isn't passive, it's proactive. It means making decisions not from fear but from faith, not in outcomes but in order, and it means understanding this truth. Your mission doesn't need to be loud to be real. Maybe your purpose isn't to change the whole world. Maybe it's to raise one kind child, to create one honest piece of art, to show one person what calm looks like. And maybe that's enough, more than enough. So what's your mission? You don't need a perfect answer. But ask the question anyway. Sit with it. Let it shape your choices. And when in doubt, act from love. Act from clarity. Act from your values. Because the more you do, the more you'll start to see the pattern. You'll notice the way rejection redirects you, the way timing protects you, the way even your heartbreaks were preparing you. This is what it means to believe, not blindly, but bravely. To keep walking when the path is unclear, to keep building when no one's clapping, to keep becoming because it's who you are, not because it's popular. You're not chasing luck. You're co-creating reality. Every morning, remind yourself, I trust the universe, I trust my path, I trust my role in it, and then act accordingly. Build your day as if you believe it. Speak as if it's already unfolding. Treat others as if they're part of the plan, not obstacles, but companions, teachers. And if you ever forget, if doubt creeps in, come back to this. You don't need to know how it'll all work out. You just need to keep showing up as someone worthy of the outcome. Because when you do, the universe listens and it responds in kind. What you seek is also seeking you. But only if you're ready. And if you're still here, still listening, still feeling this deep in your chest, then trust me. You are. You've heard it said before, you are the author of your own story. But let's take that further tonight. You're not just writing the words, you're designing the structure, the pacing, the tone. You are the architect of your future. No one else, not your past, not your parents, not your boss, not the economy, not the people who doubted you or the voices that once told you to stay small. They don't hold the blueprint. You do. This truth is simple, but it's not easy to accept. Because it means letting go of blame. It means giving up the comfort of excuses. But it also means reclaiming something far more valuable. Your agency. Your power to shape, to build, to change direction starting right now. Stoicism is built on this principle. You are not defined by what happens to you. You are defined by how you respond. Epictetus taught this again and again. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. That's not just philosophy. That's freedom. You don't need perfect conditions to begin. You don't need all the answers. You need to start. Even if your hands are shaking, even if your voice is uncertain, even if no one claps for you at first. Picture this. A young programmer graduates into one of the most competitive job markets ever. They apply, get ghosted, again and again. But instead of waiting for someone to pick them, they start building. A demo app, a blog, an open source project, quietly, consistently. Not for applause, but to create. A year later, they don't just get hired. They're recruited because they showed initiative. They prove something. I won't wait to be chosen, I'll choose myself. That's the mindset of a true architect, a Stoic architect. Historians often debate whether ancient Stoicism leaned toward passivity or radical action. The answer, of course, lies in balance. It didn't tell you to do everything. It told you to do what you can with everything you have. And what you can do is design. Design your habits, your energy, your response. Design your rituals, your focus, your boundaries. Because each decision you make is a brick, and those bricks are building a structure you'll live in tomorrow. Think of your life like a cathedral. Grand, sacred, not built in a day, but built every day. Some days you add a stained glass window. Other days you just sweep the floor. But all of it counts, all of it matters. And what you're building isn't for show. It's for strength. When the storms come, and they will, you'll stand taller not because you avoided hardship, but because you built with care, with discipline, with integrity. So tonight, ask yourself, what am I building? Not in theory, but In action, are your habits constructing the future you say you want? Are your words and choices forming the kind of person you respect? If not, this isn't condemnation. It's a checkpoint, a place to pivot. Because the most powerful thing about being the architect is that you can redesign. You can let go of old blueprints. You can knock down walls that no longer serve you. You can open up windows to let light in. You can start again without starting over. Marcus Aurelius didn't wait for inspiration. He acted. Each day, even under the weight of empire, he rose and chose virtue, chose presence, chose discipline. His life wasn't easy, but it was designed. And that's why we still read his words today. You don't need a kingdom to do the same. You just need a commitment. Each morning, wake with intention. What am I building today? Even a single aligned act, a healthy meal, a moment of stillness, a task completed with focus, lays another brick. Even, your thoughts are bricks. If you keep telling yourself, I'll never change, guess what you're building? A prison. But if you whisper even softly, I am becoming, you're building a path. This script you're listening to right now, it's not entertainment. It's a blueprint. It's here to help you remember what you already know. You don't have to beg the world to change. You have to build the kind of inner world that doesn't flinch when the outer one shifts. And when you do that, when you start to walk through life with intention, clarity, and resolve, others feel it. You inspire not by shouting, but by embodying. Not by forcing, but by modeling. So keep laying the bricks, even when no one sees. Especially then, because one day someone will walk through the doors of the life you built. Your child, your partner, a stranger who needed a light. And they will feel something sacred. They'll feel the steadiness, the integrity, the love, the peace. And it all started here. In the quiet decision to stop drifting and start designing. You've been walking with me through this journey, step by step, word by word. And now, you've arrived at a place that few people ever reach, not because they're not capable, but because they turn back too soon. You didn't. You stayed. You listened. You reflected. And more than that, you opened yourself to change. Now comes the most beautiful, empowering truth of all. The shift has already begun. It didn't start with fireworks. It didn't arrive in some grand epiphany. It began quietly, maybe when you paused during section 1 and took your first real breath in days. Maybe when you whispered, "That's me," in section 6. Or maybe just now as you feel something in your chest, less tension, more clarity. The shift isn't something that happens to you, it's something you claim. And here's the final piece: the shift never ends. Because you are not a project to be completed. You are a process, a journey, a living, breathing becoming. You've learned by now, transformation doesn't come from emotion alone. It's not about being hyped or motivated or perfect. It's about being intentional. About waking up each day and choosing the path that aligns with your soul, even when it's inconvenient. Especially then, you're no longer a passive observer of your life. You're not just hoping things change, you are the change. Every thought you accept, every word you speak, every boundary you hold, every act of quiet courage you repeat, you're shifting yourself. This is what the Stoics knew long before it became popular wisdom. They understood that the good life wasn't about what you owned or accomplished. It was about what you became, about what you mastered on the inside, even when the outside remained wild and uncertain. Historians still wrestle with how to categorize Stoicism. Was it a lifestyle, a mindset, a spiritual philosophy? Maybe it was all three. Because it reached into every area of living and showed people how to live well. And now it's shown you. You've reconnected with your ability to focus, to forgive, to build, to release, to rise. You've tapped into what some call logos, some call God, some call inner truth. Whatever the name, it's real, and it's within you. Let's take this moment to lock it in. Right now, whisper to yourself, I am already becoming the person I was born to be. Say it again, slower this time. Let the words fall into your body. Feel their weight, feel their truth. Because you are. You're choosing clarity over confusion, peace over pressure, purpose over panic. And that's not easy. That's extraordinary. It's not about removing all darkness. It's about becoming the one who can walk through it with steady steps and a clear heart. Tonight, you're not the same person who hit play. You're steadier, calmer, more grounded. Maybe only a little, but that little is everything. Because from here, it grows, and grows, and grows. You are the one who gets to say, this is the moment it started. Not when life changed, but when I did. And that's the point of this entire journey. That once you really listen, you can't go back. You don't need to. The shift is permanent. Because you're no longer asleep. You're here, awake, present, ready. Now let's begin our wind down. Let it all soften now. We've done the work. Now we let it settle. Let yourself slow. Let your mind stretch and drift like a cloud floating above still water. No more trying, no more analyzing, just being. You've earned this stillness. Breathe in. Feel your chest rise. Breathe out. Let it all fall away. Tonight, there's nowhere to be. Nothing to fix, nothing to fear. You are safe. You are whole. You are exactly where you need to be. The thoughts that chase you during the day? Let them go now. Picture them as leaves floating downstream, acknowledged but not held. They do not own you. You are more than your worries. You are the calm beneath the current. Each breath you take returns you to yourself, to the quiet truth beneath all the noise. You are not broken. You are becoming. And becoming takes time and gentleness and grace. Imagine your future now, not in detail but in feeling. A version of you who walks slower, speaks clearer, loves deeper. A version of you who no longer fears the unknown because they know they can meet whatever comes. That version is already growing inside you, even now, even here. And if tears come, let them. They are the soul's way of softening the soil, making room for new things to take root. Let your muscles relax. Unclench your jaw. Drop your shoulders. Soften your face. You've held so much for so long. You can set it down now. Just for tonight. You are safe. You are loved. You are enough. And when the morning comes, you'll rise. Not perfectly, but consciously. And that, my friend, is everything. Sleep well. Let the shift continue in silence. And know that even in rest, you are still becoming sweet dreams.